It's time for a little story time with Jillian. I am going to tell you the story of the time that I did ayahuasca. Yes, it was a complete journey. And I want to share with you the spiritual truths that I experienced and learned, share them with you because they changed my life and hope that they might push you in a brighter direction as well. Okay, so we are going to travel back to the magical time of 2005. I had gone to Ireland previously, another story, fell in love with a French guy, all of that drama and wonder. And I was hungry for another international experience. And I decided I wanted to go to Peru. There was something calling to me, a past life, something, no doubt, actually, very much so. I knew that Peru was the spiritual country, and I wanted to go there and have a spiritual experience and see what kind of could crack open in my life. And so, sure enough, it did. So at the time, I was a world religions major and a psychology major, double majoring. I decided that I wanted to create my own trip to Peru and have my student loans pay for it. So that's what I did. I met with my advisor. We created these programs. And then I flew down to Peru for 2 months by myself with very poor Spanish. That's a whole other story about how that's actually when I realized I was talking to my guides because they told me I was going to be fine, and they were right. So win on the spirit guides for that one. But in any case, I went down to Peru, and after the month I spent in Cusco learning about Incan culture and Peruvian history and all of that lovely stuff to check the boxes for my college credits, I journeyed into the Peruvian Amazon, specifically near Iquitos in the jungle. And I was staying at this retreat center, a shamanic retreat center called Sachamama, I think, which means jungle mother, jungle mama. And I had booked a stay there for 3 weeks. And at this place, they did ayahuasca ceremonies. Now, of note, this was before ayahuasca tourism was as big as it is now. So this was really a find. Like, I was picked up by an airport by a sketchy person who then transferred me over to this other sketchy person. I didn't know if I was going to survive the night. I did. Obviously, I'm here. They took me to the side of the road where there was this dirt road that went on for about a mile. And this guy carried my luggage. Meanwhile, kept on joking around how I was gordita. So look that up. That's fun. When, your tour guide here is calling you a little fatty. That's fantastic. And so I was just going to slip right down the road. I didn't. This little gordita made her way to the heart of the retreat center. Once there, I had my own hut in the Amazon with a hammock and mosquito netting, and it was a real deal. There were monkeys going through the tree canopy. There were dragonflies larger than I've ever seen. There were snakes. It was a full Peruvian jungle experience. Okay, so I think it was like the second day maybe that I was there that we were having our first ayahuasca ceremony. It was legit. There was a group of Americans that were staying there, and they came every year. So they were able to give me the rundown. And they were like, you need to wear all white. I don't know where that came from, but apparently they thought I needed to wear all white. So I was like, okay. And I needed a handkerchief because I didn't know. They told me I wasn't going to know where my nose ended and the snot began or something along those lines. So they gave me a handkerchief and gave me some other helpful tips to prepare for the ceremony. Like, for example, and this is a little terrifying, making sure that I was wearing pants that could come off easily, because things come out of you when you do ayahuasca from both directions. Just gonna put it that way. Yeah. Uh-huh. So, okay, check. Got all of that. Getting ready for this ceremony. I find a spot out in the forest to meditate and get clear. And I'm seeing all these little lights around me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already starting. I'm already hallucinating and I haven't taken any ayahuasca yet. Well, no, actually, that was fireflies. I didn't know. Grew up in Oregon my entire life. We don't have fireflies. So this is already this magical experience. Okay, find my way into the hut. And let me talk to you about this hut. It was a hut. There was a dirt floor. There were 2 long benches on either side. There was a thatch roof hut, open walls, because with the benches, because it was a flat bench and then a back, and you were to lean over the edge of the bench when it was time to throw up, which you would definitely be doing. So no buckets, no fancy mats. This was like old school ayahuasca ceremony experience. And then at the foot of the hut, there was a table full of different bottles, including like soda bottles that had the ayahuasca in them and other like tobacco and other things that the shaman would use. Shaman Don Francisco was our shaman. So the night fell. All the women were on one side, all the men were on the other. I don't know why. There are a lot of rules around ayahuasca. I don't know if you've done ayahuasca, if you've had this experience, but anyway, so one of them was the gender thing. Another, you're not supposed to eat pork ahead of time. You're not supposed to have sex for a few days ahead of time. There are all these different rules, and I don't know. So I'm like, sure, okay, I'll do whatever you need me to do to make sure that I've got a good experience. So I'm sitting there. I've never done hallucinogenics before, okay? No mushrooms, no LSD, no idea what to expect. So I'm sitting there, and Don Francisco has a little, in my head, it's a coconut. I don't know if it actually was a coconut, but in my memory, it's like a little coconut. And he pours the brew, and he then takes it to the first person, and he does some chanting, and he blows some smoke over you, and you're supposed to have an intention that you set before you go into the ceremony. So he starts with the men. I don't know why. Why did the men get to start first? Anyway, he started with the men, and then gradually, one by one, eventually it came over to me. So like the anticipation was building. And so I heard also as people were drinking it, like they began like, bleh, bleh, like they couldn't handle the flavor of it. So I was terrified about what this experience was going to be. But here I was in Peru. I was here for it. So I got my little dose and I take it. And, you know, it tasted like coffee grounds and cigarette butts. It didn't taste great, but it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to spit up or anything. So it was fine. And then, you know, it continued on with the remainder of the women on the bench. And then I sat there. I had to sit there and wait for it to hit me. You're just sitting there. It's dark. There's no lights, which, by the way, was something that the Americans had warned me about, is that light would be like physically hurt me. So total darkness. And you're just sitting there and you can hear the sounds of the forest around you, the crickets and just the hum and the buzz of the forest is amazing. And then you hear the men starting to get the effects of the ayahuasca. And it's not good. It's not good. Because they start retching horribly. And I'm just sitting there going, oh my gosh, this is coming for me. Like it's like this wave that's making its way around the benches and it's gonna come for me. And there was no getting off the ride because it was too late. So I sat and I waited, and eventually, I kid you not, it was just like on some 70s show or something, that the lights started going like multicolored rainbow swirls in front of my eyes. And I was like, oh, here we go. And I started to feel this disconnect. And I was like, uh-oh, what did I sign up for? What is happening? What's going on? But I was on the bus, and I had to ride the bus to the end of the ride. So I started feeling sweaty and hot and just not good at all. And there are these children's hands reaching out for me, right? There's children's hands. And then there's Jesus shows up. And Jesus is like, you're me. And I'm like, no, I'm not Jesus. And he kept on being like, no, you're me. You're Jesus. And I'm like, nope, I am not Jesus. I'm not delusional. I know I'm not, I believe in reincarnation, but I don't think I'm Jesus reincarnated. Now, of note, the thing that's interesting, this happens to people. And now as I'm older, I realize that what the message was is the Christ consciousness that we all have the Christ consciousness inside of us. But at the time, I was being very literal about thinking that I was being told I was Jesus reincarnated, which I knew very well that I was not. I have a lot of little stories about my past lives where that is not one of them. So as these hallucinations are happening, another thing that's happening is that the shaman and the shaman's apprentice, because there are shaman's apprentices, it was a San Francisco guy, a long-haired blonde San Francisco dude, it's perfect. They're singing icoros. Icoros are these songs that go along with the ayahuasca experience that help you go through the journey. So there are different songs, and they're in Spanish, at least the ones I experienced were, and there are different songs that will help you through the stages that you travel through. So the icoros that he began singing at that point was the one to help us throw up. Isn't that great? A song to help you throw up. So sure enough, that song did the trick, and there I was, purging what was coming out of me, out of my body, over the edge of this bench. But I will tell you, it wasn't like throwing up, like I've ever experienced before. It was like I was in a snake, or my body was a snake, the way that it was like convulsing and writhing. It was like my entire body was throwing up. Not just like my stomach. It was like my entire body was throwing up. And it was like all of this blackness was coming out of me, that I was throwing up not only what was in my stomach, but I was throwing up all of this energy, all of this negative energy that was around me or in me or whatever. And I was getting it out of me. And here we come to the first major, probably the most important life lesson I've ever experienced before or since. And it was, I got to this point where I just completely gave up. I was in so much pain. Not only was I throwing up, but my body felt pain. And when I tried to think logically or analyze things, that caused me pain. It caused me pain. And I just had this moment where I was in such a hard, horrible place that I said, I surrender. I said, take whatever you want from me. I guess I was talking to my guides. But I said, take whatever you take whatever you want from me. Whatever you want, just take it. Just take it. I'm done. I can't anymore. I give up. And I surrendered to the deepest fiber of my being. I've never experienced that before because I am a control freak. I have to be in control of everything, certainly up to that point, and probably still. That's why I have so many Excel spreadsheets, because it gives me this sense of control. But in that moment, I just completely released and surrendered. And as I did that, it got better. It felt better. It felt better. But I still was in pain. And I remember, because I had heard these stories from the Americans as they were telling what their hallucination experience had been the night before that I had arrived. So I had listened to their stories. And I remember somebody had talked about how helpful the earth was. So remember, this hut, there was a dirt floor. So I decided I'm going to get down and I'm going to lay down on this dirt floor. And I did. And it was the wildest thing ever, because it was magic. I mean, literally, it was magic. I laid down on the dirt, and all of a sudden, I felt completely fine. It was like a blanket or something just washed over me, and I just felt fine. I didn't feel sick anymore. The next day, we shared our stories, and the shaman, when I told him this part, the shaman said, that was Mother Earth. Mother Earth was taking care of you because she sees you as her daughter, so she was taking care of you in that moment. So I was like, well, that's great. And I will tell you, that's something even to this day, that if I'm not feeling well for some reason, I will lay down on the floor and get that sense of surrender and peace. It's still a good one. I still keep that one in my pocket. Recommend it. If you're having a moment, just lay down on the floor. But even still, if you can lay down on the dirt, it's magical. So that made me feel so much better, so that I was able to continue on with my multiple hour hallucination journey. So that was part one. So I think at this point I realized that maybe I needed to evacuate as well. So I went out into the forest and nothing happened. Nothing came out. The weird thing was I felt like there were things biting me, but yet there was nothing biting me. So there was that. There was another guy who went out and was under the tree. And I thought this was interesting. Welcome to the world of ayahuasca. The shaman told this guy that the tree was like a grandfather to this guy and was teaching him how to play guitar. If you want to know how to play guitar, go down to the Amazon, find that tree and do some ayahuasca. Maybe that's the way for you to learn how to play the guitar. I don't know. Okay, well, I found myself back into the hut, right? I found myself back on my seat. And then it was interesting. I don't know what the people around me must have thought, but now I had somebody that I was talking to. I didn't see them physically, but it's like I just knew that there was a man there, and he was like my future husband, which obviously was not the case, apparently, at least not yet. But anyway, in this state, I was talking to him, and I was talking to him out loud. So I don't know what the experience was for everybody else, but I am there talking to this gentleman, and I'm saying, no, I love you. No, I love you. No, I love you. Just over and over again. Like he was telling me that he loved me, and I was just like, no, I love you. But as I say this too, like I interpreted it as my husband, but maybe it was a spirit guide telling me that he loved me. Like again, as we saw from the Jesus thing, my interpretation of things wasn't necessarily factual, but anyway, apparently I had to tell this person that I loved them over and over again until I got tired of it. And I was like, this guy needs too much reassurance. Like, I can't do this anymore. I was kind of like, okay, I'm done with that. I can't handle this anymore. So then it was along about then, or a little bit, time is fuzzy. But there is, in the middle of this dirt floor, there's this large American man. He's this big guy. He was probably like 6'3", broad shoulders, big guy. And he is he is on the ground and he is calling out for help. And he's saying, will somebody help me, please? Will somebody help me, please? Will somebody help me, please? And I'm there. And by this point, like I've stopped my visual hallucinations and I'm able to interpret the people around me. And I see him and I'm like, well, what do you need? What help do you need? And he doesn't hear me, but I keep on talking to him. Hey, I'm here to help you. What do you need? And then at this point, it was interesting. So this is the second most important lesson that I got from doing the ayahuasca. And it's one I use to this day, and it has transformed my relationships, transformed them. Because prior to this, I used to feel like I needed to rescue people. I felt like I had all these friends in my life that were hot messes. Including one that I held a memorial service for, and it turns out she wasn't even dead, okay? But that's a whole other story. But in any case, I had a lot of friends in my life who I had to be the hero. I put myself in the place where I was rescuing them. So here's this guy. He needs help, and I'm here to rescue him. I am here to help him, this gigantic man, whatever he needs. And at this point, my spirit guide begins talking to me. And my spirit guide says, you need to let him have his experience. And he shows me that this guy is like a little boy. And he's in this like desert landscape with like cliffs. I don't know, for me it kind of looks like Israel or something, Arizona, I don't know. But these cliffs, and he's on the top of this mesa or something, and he's crying out, will somebody help me, please? And my spirit guide tells me he needs to find out that he doesn't need anybody else's help. He needs to learn that he has the power in himself to do it. And if you go and rescue him, he won't learn that. if you go and rescue him, he will not learn how powerful he is. Now, that definitely did not come from me at that time in my life. And that lesson is one that I use every day, is to be able to respect that people, when they look like they are at the mercy of something, that I need to remember that they have the power to rescue themselves, and I don't have to be their savior, that I can respect. And I mean, we can help each other, sure, but not to the point where we take away from them their own power, right? Gigantic. Totally changed how I show up in my relationships, so that now I respect and honor people's journey, even if they're choices that I don't think are the right ones. I tell them if they ask what I think, but I also know that even when it's the wrong choice, it's the right one for them, because it's part of their path for them to find out how powerful they are. So that was a gift that was given to me during this ayahuasca experience. Now, the third thing that happened, and forgive me, I can't remember exactly what sequence it came in, but the third thing that happened was I became everything. Let's go back. As I was in the hallucination state, I began to transform into different things. Now, I want to be clear, because I read a lot about ayahuasca and thought like, you literally think you're a jaguar or something. It isn't like that. It's more that your identity, almost like you're having a living, waking dream or something. It's not like I literally saw myself as a cat, but that I thought it was like it was a hallucination. I don't know if you've done hallucinations before. If you've done hallucinogenics before, you probably understand. And if you haven't, you probably aren't going to understand unless you've done it. But in any case, I began transforming into things, including I was in the belly of a whale. I was in the belly of a whale. That was interesting. I remember telling this to other people, and they're like, oh, yeah, I had that hallucination too. I've been in the belly of a whale. Great. One time I was underneath a bridge, like a covered bridge. I was in the riverbed down below, and I was like, there's something underneath everything, which was such a profound spiritual truth for me that afterwards I was like, I don't get it. But at the time, there's something underneath everything was deeply profound, and I was just seeing it in this imagery of this covered bridge and this river that went underneath it. But I felt the truth of it is that underneath all of this reality, there is something else at play. So that was great. That was great, right? Realization. But what really, I think, was the most profound is as I began changing into these things and going to all of these places, eventually I became a mountain. I became the mountain. And then I became everything. I wish I had this regularly, this experience, but I knew I was everything. And I felt open and expansive and powerful to know that I was everything. So you had your full hallucinogenic 101 experience there, but it was very profound. And as the hours went by and the Icaros played on and I came back to my body, I was one of the first ones back to my body, so that I was able to help people. I could sense that there was a black jaguar that was with me, protecting me. And if you don't know, that is a spirit animal of the, certainly in the Peruvian Amazon, it's seen as a powerful spirit guide. It was there with me throughout the night. So, no big deal that I just was hanging out with black jaguar in the middle of this hallucination. It's just weird because I've never, had this sort of experience before or since, to be able to kind of feel these presences around when you don't actually see them, yet know them, know that this is true. But after that experience, for the next day, I felt this openness, I felt this expansiveness, I felt this love and this interconnection and this peace. And it was beautiful. And so for me, I know that doing ayahuasca to create this experience is not my path. Certainly, because I don't want to go through all that throwing up again, for one thing. But I think the gift that it gave me was that it gave me a window into what our truths are, what our true reality is, to be these open, expansive beings that are everything, that I was able to peek behind the curtain for a moment and to remember that as I go through life, that this is, this is the illusion. This is the going through the covered bridge part of the story, and knowing that there is something underneath everything. Anyway, that was the wild ride of the ayahuasca experience. I stayed at the retreat center for a couple more weeks. I had another ayahuasca ceremony experience. And that one, interestingly, wasn't as physically painful. I really think there was something about the pain had a lot to do with the energy that we have in our energetic field, and that I purged a lot of that so that when I went to it the second time, it wasn't as bad. Doesn't mean it was good, but it wasn't as bad as it was the first time. And I also went into it knowing I'm just going to completely come into this surrendered. And that also made it a lot easier, that being in that place of surrendering and just going with it instead of trying to control things. But it was in that second one that one of my spirit guides came to me. And this one, again, it was kind of like a dream, but I could see them. And they told me very clearly I wasn't supposed to do it again. They were very emphatic about it. Sometimes I wonder if that was just me, part of me that was like, I don't want to have to throw up again. And so it created this. But I also wonder, what was it, if this was legit and that my spirit guides were warning me, don't do this again. I wonder why. I wonder what that story was. But you know what? I decided not to push it. I decided to listen to him. And I told the shaman's like, oh yeah, you shouldn't do it then. So then I ended up being the person sitting beside the shaman, singing the Icaros for the people that were going through the experience and helping them as they went through their journeys, which was really beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to go through as well. Yeah, that was my time in the Peruvian Amazon. It was just a profound journey that changed my life, changed the shape of my life, that I was able to learn these really deep, impactful lessons in a matter of a couple of hours is phenomenal. And I've been spending the rest of my life trying to really hold on to those lessons and to deepen them as much as I can. I don't think there's any more ayahuasca ceremonies in my future, but you never know. If you're thinking about doing ayahuasca yourself, well, now you got a little bit more intel. Either you want to do it or not after that experience. It certainly isn't something you do for fun. You might as well just have a cocktail if you just want to have a good time. But if you're there to have a profound, transformative experience, yeah, don't think you need to do drugs to have that sort of an experience. You can get there the long way through the meditative states. Maybe go to an ashram. I don't know. The world's your oyster. I hope you find your way to your particular life lessons, whatever they may be. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.